How's it going, peeps? Welcome back to Viva La Coin. I am your ever-present host, Joe, and I'll be walking you through a massive update to the Ethereum network that was just announced, even though it was already in the works for some time. We're going to jump into exactly what EIP 1559 is and what that means for Ethereum holders and the network moving forward. Aside from that, keep in mind, I am by no means a financial advisor. This is purely educational. Do not listen to me for anything financially. Go talk to your financial advisor. I'm sure that with all the bond yields increasing in the stock market and free fall in the tech side, they'd love to talk crypto with you. That'll be an exciting conversation for them to have. But aside from that, let's just jump into it. Real quick, as always, we're going to take a quick peek at our dearest friend, Bitcoin, who is holding strong right around 50,000, picking up to like 51,000, give or take, throughout the day. So now that a lot of that dumping and consolidation is done, we should have a pretty clear march moving forward. And this news that we're going to cover about this update to Ethereum is going to have a big effect in crypto in general, but mostly for Ethereum. Now, just before we click into the Ethereum tab, if you've been in the space for even a couple months, you've probably seen the next couple cryptocurrencies behind it: Cardano, Binance, Coin, Polkadot, and well, Tether doesn't count, that's a stable coin, but those three have been in contention with each other, trying to get to that number 3 spot, and then they've all been part of the conversation of, are they going to be the quote-unquote Ethereum killer? Which means, are they going to be able to take over that number 1 network spot from Ethereum and sort of slide up there? Because Ethereum, if you remember from our video, was having consistent issues when it came to congestion of the network, inability to scale, not as much of the network staked as other projects like Cardano, and ultimately very high transaction fees that were pushing a lot of retail consumers such as myself out of that space. Well, that may all change coming up here shortly in July. Now, the article that we're going to cover is in regards to EIP 1559. Now, what EIP stands for is Ethereum Improvement Proposal. I know, phenomenal name, super creative, but this proposal was brought forth and co-authored by one of the founders of Ethereum, Vitalik Buterin. And what it aims to do is address some of the major problems that are currently happening on the Ethereum network. Now, this update, when we cover it, the changes that are looking to go into effect, we'll be looking to go live in July, give or take. That is when the hard fork that they have dubbed London is supposed to already take effect. So they're going to try and build this update into it. Now, what exactly is the Ethereum Improvement Proposal, or EIP 1559? Well, a couple things. One, this is something that could make Ethereum deflationary. Now, what that means is, if you remember the total count of Ethereum tokens that we mentioned prior, 114.9 million now, go back and look at our Ethereum video. When I covered that, there was 114.8 million. So there is no max supply. There's just more generated over time as the network expands and more is mined. So although, yes, it is finite to an extent, there's always a little bit more put out and the network expands. Well, in this new proposal, in EIP 1559, when you pay for transactions on the network, let's say that you were to build something on that network, or I was to use it on a decentralized exchange, and I was paying something for another token with the Ethereum network. I was paying in Ethereum. Well, instead of just paying that fee to the miners, because originally I was just paying them Ethereum to have them validate the network and push it through. Well, now that Ethereum is just burned. And there's a difference between me spending a crypto or transacting it and sending it to someone else and having it be burned, or in this case, destroyed altogether. So now moving forward, anytime I am putting transactions through, that Ethereum will be burned. Now, what that does is it turns Ethereum into a possible deflationary asset. So if, let's say, we have 114.9 million Ethereum, and over the course of a day, we burn 100,000 Ethereum, let's say, just as an example, and we only generate 90,000, then we're deflationary. We're burning more than we're generating, and the supply is going to shrink and shrink and shrink. And one of the other coins that we're going to be talking about that I've been working on and keep pushing it off because we all have these massive updates time and time again is the Binance chain and Binance coin. They also do token burns, and a lot of the value that that coin has specifically is it's being removed from circulation and cutting down that supply, thus making it more valuable in nature, especially since they all serve specific functions and purposes. So that's the first thing. Secondly, it's going to help Ethereum scale. With all that congestion, the way that this network was working prior is they would have a bidding system. So right here, so Ethereum's fee structures used to run on a bidding system where the highest bids, the more you would pay, the quicker your transaction would get put through, which is why you would see as the network during big influxes and price increase would go up, you would have to pay more just to get anything done because the network becomes more congested. Those fees increase in order to get your spot in line and effectively complete your task. And for most retail investors, that was way, way too expensive for them. And I gave an example the last time, but on average, I was spending about $300 per Ethereum transaction towards the end of January, and then towards that run up right around the $58,000 mark. So wouldn't recommend spending that much Ethereum unless you have a specific purpose for it or you need a specific thing done. So that is going to speed up this network. Now that you have a more fair and transparent network, you're not bidding out those smart contracts or putting those fees through to the miners. So instead of clogging everything up, deciding who's going to get to go through first, all of those fees will be more spread out, so to speak, and go through much more smoothly. So if you look at what this being deflationary and helping the network to scale or push transactions through more smoothly is going to do for Ethereum, could be amazingly beneficial for the price and for the network in general. Now, I'm going to make my own video on them, but Grayscale Bitcoin Trust is a company that has been purchasing tons of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and several other cryptocurrencies. But the reason why I mention them is over the course of the last, especially 4 or 5 months, they've been buying thousands upon thousands of Ethereum on top of thousands upon thousands of Bitcoin. But they weren't worried about the fees. They weren't worried about network congestion. They've just been buying Ethereum. Now, part of me goes back and I think, well, the institutional cost, they're not going to care about that, right? These billion-dollar institutions, they'll be able to pay the fees. But maybe, just maybe, and this is my tinfoil hat moment, no financial advice here, but it's quite possible that they knew that this was going to be pushed through and that 50% of the majority of the Ethereum network would agree upon EIP 1559. If that was the case, and they understand why Ethereum will continue to be the #1 undisputed network in the system over the next several years, then that would make sense as to why they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars purchasing Ethereum for their trust, for these other businesses to either purchase or purchase part of just the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust shares. Now, one last thing I do want to point out, and this is something that we will not know until closer to July, but for the miners themselves, they are very disgruntled, to say the least, about this main decision, especially some of the larger mining pools, because they have been scooping up all of those fees that we're paying, and we're essentially paying the miners who are validating the network and pushing everything through as they're checking those boxes. So they are upset because they're going to make less in those fees that we're paying on the network to push everything through. And it is possible that they may, just like Ethereum Classic in our previous video, we discussed how there was a split between the original Ethereum and this current one. They may do another fork where they're saying, hey, fuck this new proposal. We don't want to cut the amount that we're getting paid, and we're going to fork off and go do our own thing. I personally don't think that they would have the more popular version, especially due to the cost and the congestion issues. And secondly, if some of those miners leave, I know people even personally in my life that wanted to do Ethereum mining. It's just too expensive. But if a lot of the miners left, I'm sure that there would be plenty of people that would like to step up and give it a shot. So as far as the network goes, they would just have to make sure that it is a smooth transition to avoid any type of 51% attack or any sort of network transition issue during that time. But ultimately, I wanted to make you aware of this because if you're holding Ethereum currently, it could become much, much more valuable if the circulating supply starts to diminish due to it being burned in its actual use. And the larger the network becomes, the faster it gets burned. So it's going to be very interesting to see exactly where this goes. If you have any additional questions, please go ahead and drop them down in the comments below. I will be following this, especially as we get closer to July, for any updates or any specific changes to EIP 1559. And you guys will be the first ones to know what I know. Aside from that, I can't thank you enough for jumping on the video. Definitely share this around. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Hit that bell notification, like the video. And as always, thank you for joining us on Viva La Coin.